Greetings and welcome to The Hidden Palace, the show where we talk with experts and enthusiasts about video game preservation. My name is Bo, and I'm at the controls again for this second episode of the show. Thanks to everyone who listened to episode 1, and to the person who said that it was unfair of me to suggest that I might trade one of my sons for a prototype version of Shenmue for Saturn. I thought about it, and you're right. It should be both of them to keep things fair. So if you've got this disc, let me know. Let's get the deal done. They're good kids.
I think you should have done like fight to the death, trial by combat. You should like let the strongest survive, and the weakest gets traded for the Shenmue.
You know, Shenmue taught me you got to go train every day, and if you do, you will be able to avenge your father's death. And you know, now that I'm saying that, maybe that's not the best course for me to take. But okay, who's here? Who's here? That was Saz who was talking.
Hello.
Also rejoining the team, we've got DRX. DRX, welcome.
What's up?
And returning champion, Nick.
Hello.
And joining us for the first time is HWD. HWD, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So we're here to be experts and enthusiasts about video game preservation. And I have to confess that I have a very narrow scope of knowledge about anything that's not the Sega Saturn. And I also wasn't paying attention to video games for most of the 2000s or 2010s. And I hear there's some preservation stuff that I may have missed while I was looking elsewhere, mourning the loss of the Dreamcast. And I was hoping, DRX, Saz, Nick, HWD, you could help us think about some of the Hidden Palace greatest hits. I hear there's a 18th anniversary of some big 2008 release that has recently taken place.
Yeah, that was, 5 days ago from today? The 2008 Sega ROM archive, I guess you could call it. Yeah, it's funny. It's old enough to drive and vote now. Yeah, that was a fun one and kind of a nail biter. So I worked on that one for a long time. I think it took me like a year.
So tell us what is in this release. It's prototypes. It's mostly Sega. Is that right?
Yes. So this was actually 2 parts, but these prototypes came from a ROM archive. This is the official name on the discs. Which, as best as we can tell, is a backup of Sega's BBS, the internal BBS they used for like Q&A and all kinds of internal purposes from about 94, 95. And some of the ROMs are basically, as far as we can tell, ROMs submitted by third parties or first parties to be QA'd by Sega of America. And so that's where most of the prototypes in that release came from. And that amounted to, I think, a little over 1,000 ROMs, which at the time, I think, was probably the biggest release.
Okay, so and it's mostly Genesis Mega Drive, or does it go into the 32X Saturn era as well?
So it's everything. It was mostly Genesis. There was some Game Gear. There was actually some Master System as well. And there's 32X and even Sega Pico, which that was kind of a fun one because I think at the time, no Sega Pico ROMs were dumped at all. Like that was a completely unknown sort of console in the emulation scene. So I think those prototypes, which I don't know, there was like 50 of them maybe. Those are like the first Pico ROMs dumped.
Yeah, are there even 50 Pico games? I guess there must be.
The emulation of Pico games is really interesting because for those who don't know, Pico, the original Sega Pico, was just a Mega Drive that had a special controller for picture books, and you would tap the picture books to control the game, essentially. So for emulating that, the emulators for that literally just take pictures of the picture books and just show them on the screen with the ROM for you to control. It's very rudimentary, but there's really not a better way to do it, I suppose.
Okay, so yeah, Game Gear and Pico. That's amazing.
So there's some Saturn stuff even, and I think there's like a Sega Mega CD ISO in there, like kind of lost in the mix. And that was like one set of CDs. There was also like a second set of discs that I initially thought were just final ROMs. So there was like a disc labeled disc 1, disc 3, disc 4, and they just had a like list of what I presumed were final ROMs. And so I kind of like, okay, I'm gonna get them just in case they're like interesting. Like some of it was cool because like now we have build dates for a lot of final builds of games. Like, you know, it's kind of cool to know that, you know, Sonic 1 was built, I don't know what it is, like May 1st, 1991 or something. Because then we can like compare to prototype builds that we find in the wild, right? Like I remember one time I think I found like Columns prototype out there in the wild. And I was able to like pass on it because, well, the build date was the same as the one from the ROM archive. So that comes in handy quite often. But, you know, 8 years later, it actually turned out that it wasn't just finals. So Hidden Palace staffer, Evil Ham Wizard, had this idea of like, well, let's actually verify that they're finals. And turns out, nope. A lot of them were not retail builds.
Well, now I know what EHW stands for. So,
yes.
What was the process of just sorting through what it was? Were the file names suggestive? Was there metadata? Or did you just have to open up file 001.rom and see what it was?
Yeah, good question. So this was one of the craziest weeks of my life, probably, because I was so excited to get these out. That I basically pulled like multiple all-nighters in a row to get these out. And most of them were actually in zip files. So because this was kind of an archive of their BBS, it was arranged in folders for each game. And then in each folder, there was like many zip files of the different builds for that game, you know, like May 4th, May 5th, May 6th, just like whatever leading up to the final version. And many of those zip files were passworded. So I had to like figure out how to crack zip passwords, which again, this is like 2008. I wasn't really much of a coder back then. So a lot of this was kind of manual work. And then even those that didn't have passwords, like a lot of those files were actually not like the ROM files you're used to, which, you know, when you download the Sega Genesis ROM on the internet, you just get like one file, you open it in an emulator or whatever, and it just works, right? But many of those ROMs that are in the archive are actually not one file. They're split into like little files for each EEPROM chip. So a Sega Genesis dev cartridge typically has like 2, 4, or 8 EEPROM chips that the, you know, bigger ROM is split into. And you think, oh, like why not just like add them together? That doesn't seem that hard. But actually, because the Genesis is a 16-bit console, what it actually means is that the data bus is 16-bit, but the EEPROMs are 8-bit. So to actually properly combine the individual EEPROMs, like you have to interleave them before you combine them. So there was quite a bit of that. Then there were like stranger formats. Like there was this thing that I don't think most people have seen, which is like Motorola S files, which is like a representation of ROMs as text.
Like so they could be emailed or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was quite a bit of kind of stitching together a bunch of stuff. And because I was like really eager and hyper to get get them out. Like I think I did all 1,000 ROMs in like a week, which now seems kind of crazy.
You didn't like play each of the ROMs, obviously. Like if we go to an example, like when we did Project Deluge, we actually went through each and every one of the games in the package, and we actually played for some amount of time, like each and every single one of them, to at least get screenshots. For the 2008 release, largely all like 1,000 of those just kind of once you had everything collected, you just kind of put it out into the world. And I was like, here you go.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I did play them to make sure that at least they played, right, once they were combined, but I didn't like take screenshots or anything. Which actually, that informed a lot of how I do releases nowadays, because I think I dropped 1,000 prototypes in one day. And, a lot of people got really excited. Like, I think it was a fun event. But like to this day, 18 years later, like I don't think people played like 10%, 20% of them. Like they're still untouched. Nowadays when we do releases, we play, like you said, like Deluge, we played every single game, and actually HWD here helped a lot with that. And we take screenshots, we like compare them to final, we try to take notes, we try to like showcase the cool ones on stream and so on. And that a lot of that came from me having dropped this big release, and I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but it felt like kind of a shame to once it kind of lost its novelty, like people didn't really look too deeply into those. And some of that is because let's be honest, like a lot of those games were kind of not as popular, right? Like there was a lot of Sonic stuff. Like I think there's like 100 Sonic prototypes alone of all the different games. But who's gonna play 15 builds of Berenstein Bears for Sega Pico, right?
What was interesting is that, now correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some 32X ROMs that were made before the 32X hardware was finalized, right?
Right. So that was like one of the fun finds, because honestly, a lot of the fun in this release wasn't the ROMs themselves. It was kind of what it showed us about the bigger picture, right? For example, this 32X thing. Like, yes, some of the ROMs were built before the 32X came out. And actually, what we found out later was that there were actually two versions of the 32X. I think they called it a Target, but basically the console. So some of the ROMs are actually for V1 of 32X, and the retail version is V2, right? So they don't work properly. And actually getting some of the Knuckles Chaotix prototypes to work properly in an emulator took a long time. I think to this day, only a couple emulators do it correctly, because it's a big pain.
I think Kega Fusion is like the only one that actually works, and you have to toggle a setting for it to work.
And so as far as we know, the V1 never got outside of Sega?
Yeah, I think so. It's mentioned somewhere in the docs, I believe. So there's like a set of Sega 32X development docs, like the hardware manuals that dev people would get. And so I think the V1 is mentioned there as like, oh, that was the old version of the dev board. But I don't think anyone's found one.
I think the main difference between the two was that the V1 had a single CPU, a single SH2 CPU, and the final release, I believe, has the dual SH. Is it SH1 or SH2?
That's a pretty big difference. Yeah, SH2. Yeah.
And funnily enough, I remember when I was talking to a developer for the 32X, which, by the way, I've been told not a lot of people loved making games for it. It was very finicky.
Just playing games on the 32X is a pain. Like you need the little like dongle to like pass the video through. It needs its own power source. Sometimes it just like the pins just break on the board and it just doesn't work. You need the weird little clips and the little spacer if you have a Model 2 Genesis.
Yeah, and it's funny, like the dev kits. I think I remember one developer telling me that some of the early kits were actually kind of, in a way, Sega Neptunes. Like they were Genesis and 32X in one board, which I wish that came out.
Yeah, there have been people that have been making their own now. There's like a PCB you can print out that you could actually, put on all the original parts and make your own Sega Neptune and 3D print the case and everything.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to the next level.
Beat me to it. Okay. So that's a pretty cool find. The reference to the never released 32X hardware. So there's that. There's a lot of Berenstain Bears. There's a lot of Pico. Yeah, are there highlight games in there? Like interesting finds that are there individually?
So one thing that I was kind of initially disappointed by was that this was an archive made in 1995. And when I first opened up the discs, I didn't see any Restar prototypes in there, which, as a super fan of the game, that was pretty disappointing. But as I was kind of combining the different ROMs, there was this folder called Volt that just had like a bunch of like Volt 0909.zip. And it turned out that those are actually localization prototypes of Restar, because at some point it was called Volt. Then there's another one that's where the title screen says Dexstar, and I think there's like another name.
Feel, right? Yeah, I think we should do an entire Feel episode. I know another Ristar super fan.
I mean, the Feel prototype, the super early one, is still missing. Still a white whale for me. Yeah, we could have a whole episode about my attempts to find it.
We at least have a whole VHS tape to know what he would have like looked like in action.
Yeah, and so these are these Volt prototypes. What level of completion are they? Are they most of the levels? Is the gameplay different at all? I haven't played them.
So, as most of the ROMs in that archive, they're localization protos. So they're actually very similar in terms of gameplay to the final Japanese version, just like minor changes in name and things like that.
Was he made angry yet? Famously, Ristar in the Western release was not a cool enough dude, so they just made him look angry throughout the entire game.
Yeah, they Kirby-fied him for the American release. I think another good set of ROMs in there was Sonic 3 Limited Edition. That actually gave us confirmation that Sega was planning to release a full, like, one cartridge version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Primarily, I believe, for the Japanese market, because they didn't think that Japanese, like, Mega Drive owners would buy two Sonic games. It's also partially why the release of Sonic 3 was so delayed in Japan. But that was a really interesting set of ROMs because it was just Sonic 3 and Knuckles on one ROM instead of lock-on technology being used. And I think the most interesting part of that that set is the credits music in one of the versions of Sonic 3 that has the Sonic and Knuckles medley with the addition of Sonic 3 levels in it. So it starts at Angel Island Zone, it has Marble Garden Zone, and then it has Carnival Night Zone, and that transitions into Sonic and Knuckles music. And it's the first time we actually got to hear that. So that was a really cool part of that release.
The builds that we have are from between, so after the Sonic 3 release, but before Sonic and Knuckles came out. And so they're actually built as an entire ROM. Like it's not, lock-on was added very late in the process. I think, the earliest one we have is from like April, and then in June I think they started experimenting with lock-on. Not long before the final build. So they were developing the game like combined.
And I think the Sonic 3 prototype release that we did many years later kind of helped confirm that, because it still had some Sonic and Knuckles data in it that was not that they hadn't like commented out or like prevented from being built as part of the full ROM. So they had basically been working on Sonic 3 and Knuckles the whole time, and then at some point they're like, nope, just don't build these levels that we're not done with. And when they shipped Sonic 3, they're like, all right, let's just keep working on the rest of the game. So they went back to the code base for Sonic 3, the full Sonic 3 with all the levels, and that's what became Sonic 3C, is what I believe it's called internally, Sonic 3C. Sonic 3A being Sonic 3, Sonic 3B presumably being Sonic and Knuckles, and then Sonic 3C being Sonic 3 Limited Edition.
Yeah, I think some of the Knuckles ones might have been marked 3B.
That is a cool find in the lot, though.
For sure. Like we talked about previously, a lot of, I think, the fun in this release was the bigger picture, right? Not the specific ROMs, because a lot of them were kind of late, but the kind of insight they give into, how tight those deadlines were. Like I think we have 5 betas of Sonic 2 from that release as well. So we have like beta 4, 5 through 8, 8 being like almost final. And I think they span like 1 week. And you can see them like adding back Supersonic like in beta 7 or something, because it was buggy. So like it really shows crunch time, I think, like in real time.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that Supersonic probably wouldn't have even made it in, like if they didn't actually get it in at the last like second. And as a result of that, it has the game-breaking bug where if you transform into Supersonic after completing a level, you're soft locked. You got to reset.
And even if you're not a Sonic superfan, as tragically many of us are, it is interesting that Sega of Japan's relationship with Sega of America was, we're going to send you our stuff every few days. Even though you're in the American office, you're not going to release this for a while.
Who was it? Was it for Sonic 2? I can't remember which Sega STI dev actually flew out with the final ROMs for Sonic 2. And because they didn't think they were going to be able to transfer the files in time over the BBS, because they needed to get it in time for Sonic Tuesday for the global release.
I think I've heard this story, yeah.
And I believe the way it went is because of that game-breaking bug with Supersonic, they actually ended up transferring a fixed ROM over the line anyway, while Revision 0 was still in transit.
Amazing. Anything else we should say about the 2008 release that people would be upset if we didn't?
I mean, I think it's funny that it's the second time that DRX has said that this is a release he would never top.
I thought I would never top the first Sonic 2, and then I did this, and I genuinely thought I would never top it, and then I think that happened a few more times.
Yeah.
All right, so that was our Hidden Palace Classics segment. Join us again on a future episode for more of that. But now we're going to move into segment B, and for this segment, we're going to be talking about demo discs and why people who are interested in video game preservation ought to be paying attention to demo discs. And HWD, I hear you have some expertise on this topic. What are some of your favorite demo discs, and why are they interesting to somebody who likes prototypes, likes preservation, likes knowing what the build date of Sonic 2 is 17 times over?
Yeah, I think probably one of the classic cases is Crash Bash for the PS1. I mean, big surprise, I'm talking about Crash or Spyro. So Crash Bash is a bit of an infamous one, because if you're playing it normally, you have this demo disc, it's got like a little main menu, you go into the game, and it just spits you into a hub world that's got like, I think 3 levels in it, something like that. And you get like a little snippet of the game. Maybe you can see some differences. Nothing huge though. But what you might not know is that under the hood, they basically included the entire game in all of the demos. I don't know how they managed to fit it on a like a demo disc, like a compilation demo disc that would have like 6 or 7 demos. I feel like there's limits on how big you can make a demo that's going to go on one of those. But they included every single level in the game on every demo of Crash Bash. And for the first few demos, like, that's completely inconsequential. You're never going to see those levels during normal gameplay. But towards the end of development, someone decided that it would be a really good idea to add a cheat code, like a button press cheat code, into the demo to allow you to access the debug menu. And luckily, no one noticed this until 2007. So it didn't hurt sales of the game. But you just have to, I think it's like you press like left and right a bunch of times on the main menu, and that's enough to give you access to every single level in the game. So if you've got a copy of like Spyro 3, which has a late demo of Crash Bash on the disc, you have essentially got a copy of Crash Bash as well.
That's fantastic.
2 in 1.
I have to wonder if anybody actually found that out on their own and it became like a schoolyard rumor. Like, I don't know if like you've ever grown up and you had like schoolyard rumors about video games and the weird things that people said that they found in a game that's completely untrue. And I wonder if this was one of those things where like somebody said, "Oh, I got the full version of Crash Bash in my Spyro 3 demo," and they're like, "Nah, no, you didn't."
No, my brother did, but he forgot how.
I heard a schoolyard rumor once where 2 people were trying to tell me about a cheat code in a game at the same time, even though they hadn't coordinated in advance. And so they both told me different cheat codes at the same time. And I was like, am I supposed to believe this? Like,
that's funny.
No, I love it when this happens with games. There's a Sega CD game, KO Flying Squadron, that made the same mistake. The demo has the level select code in it, and you get the whole shebang. But there's surprisingly many of these where you would think that just to save space on a magazine demo disc with 8 or 9 different things on it, that you would need to strip out a bunch of stuff. But there's Saturn demos that have full games on them, and it takes a little bit of light hacking to get access to the full thing.
Do they have the audio stripped? Is that how
a lot of times the movies and the audio are missing?
Because that's usually what takes up the most space.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, most of the code and the assets are a few dozen megs, and then the audio and the video are usually a lot more.
Well, that was kind of my childhood, though, is playing pirate versions of games, of PC games without audio, like, because that's how they could fit them into, CDs or make them run or whatever. So I only heard like StarCraft music for the first time when I was an adult, which that was sad because that the music rocks.
Yeah, a lot of people get like demo discs from like official magazines. Like, I didn't get any of those. I instead like got like 2,000 in one CD like shareware discs, and that was basically the types of games that I would play on the PC for many years.
Oh, so I would buy every magazine I could, and those would have the demo discs every month, and I played every single one of them.
Yeah, I think just demo discs in general, for somebody who maybe you're a kid, you don't have access to a whole lot of money, or you're in a country where not everything is coming out, like maybe this is the way you've experienced a lot of games.
Yep, that's me. Until I taught myself how to ROM hack and download stuff from the internets.
I also like when a demo disc is maybe like a little bit too good. So I'm thinking of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater demos where you get the best level, and really you can be happy playing that for hours and hours and not have to get the entire game.
What's everyone's favorite demo disc? Mine's got to be the Jazz Jackrabbit, like shareware CD.
Oh, that's a good one. I think mine is actually. Oh, this is a game that I don't think anyone has played. But there was this city builder game called Zeus, Master of Olympus. And I only could ever get the demo of it, and I played it over and over and over again because I just could not find the retail version anywhere in the store.
Even when you're just going to shop for demo disc, certain magazines would definitely shoot the bells and whistles, so to speak, and ensure they have the hot ticket item. Essentially, most of the magazines during the PlayStation 1 timeframe were very into just trading back and forth with their demo disc selection. And, that was a great benefit if you were on a limited budget and you were just shopping around and had to get this one thing only. Going back to the, like favorite demo discs, if I were to bring up one, maybe like that I played personally over and over and over, it was just this one that came randomly in one of these magazines around 1997. Two of the games, to me, and they're not really the best games ever. One is Jersey Devil, and the other is Blasto.
I like Jersey Devil.
This demo disc is actually pretty loaded when I'm actually looking at the entire list. Blasto, Jersey Devil, they're on the lower end when you consider Tomba, Gran Turismo, Hot Shots Golf, Einhander, Tekken 3, and even Tomb Raider 2 and NBA Shootout 98. Really just jam-packed with all these just great titles. And again, and if you were just limited on budget and just happened upon one of these magazines, you just kind of looked out and you just play that over and over and over. And maybe spot some differences too. Of course, demo discs are very infamous with that, especially in the PSX era. There's quite a few differences between even the demo and the final.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're based on pre-release versions.
Yeah.
HWD, what's your favorite, or was it Crash Bash?
It's probably not Crash Bash. I think the thing is, like, when I think about like my childhood and the kind of demo discs that I played back then, I think there was like this one PlayStation 2 demo disc that I had. I feel like it might have come with the console, but I seem to remember playing demos of like Airblade and I think maybe Dark Cloud and I think a Klonoa as well, just like over and over and over. And most of those games I never played anymore, and I still haven't. But I just remember being completely like enamored by just the tiny little snippets that they give you on those demo discs. But if we're talking just like a specific demo itself that I can like recall more easily, I guess it would probably be the earliest Spyro demo. We call it the tabloid demo, because it's kind of like the earliest snippet that we have of Spyro's development, at least the earliest like playable one. There are earlier footage and screenshots, but yeah, like for a long time it was kind of the only like big insight that we had into what Spyro 1 looked like during development, and it's still quite valuable in that regard.
I think my favorite when I was a kid was one of the official Dreamcast magazines had a Jet Grind radio demo, which is the first level Shibuya, and it was the best part of it, where you can do that skating loop around the whole area. And really, that's the best part of the game. Like the rest of the game never lives up quite to that little loop. And I love Jack Ryan Radio, but that demo really does capture the entire magic of it. But I redeveloped an interest in demo discs a few years ago when I realized that, there's cool prototype builds on these. And the one that really got me into looking at every single Saturn demo disc and every single Dreamcast demo disc was there's an auto demo, a rolling demo of Fighting Force for the Sega Saturn that never came out. The game was canceled. But there was this little preview that you could see, and it's not controllable. You can't interact with it, but it's not a video. It's a preview that's rendered in the game's engine, and if you flip a bit, you can control it. And there's a Saturn prototype that you can get on the Hidden Palace website that I think is earlier and more complete. But
I think I actually released that one.
Yeah, people would be a lot more excited about the one I did had yours not been there. But
For sure.
no, I thought it was really cool that it's rescuing this game from the dead, and you can actually play it and experience what they were doing with it. Like, it looks different from the PlayStation 1. That really set off my interest.
Demo discs actually help us a lot when we're doing data recovery, because when we get a prototype like one of these, and it doesn't actually fully dump, we sometimes go to other versions of the game to try to cross-reference data with the one we're trying to dump. And sometimes demo discs are the closest version we can get to the full prototype that we're dumping. And then we can kind of like piecemeal together some parts of the data from like a demo disc or from another build that we previously dumped, sometimes the final. So it's really good to have those demos because it just adds more data we can pull from to get a complete dump for a sometimes damaged beyond repair disc that has been, either scratched, like irreparably scratched, or rotted to the point where it can't read those bits anymore. Being able to at least get like a partial read of that data, not a good read, but just enough to get some of those bits, and then compare it to a demo disc is really valuable for us.
I love that. And as I mentioned in the last show, the level of engineering we put into being able to play these fragmentary games that we like always impresses me, and I'm in awe of it every time. Like, already we've heard that we've got to interleave the data between the EEPROM chips to be able to play the 32X games. Like, it's impressive.
One of these days, we're going to do an episode of the metric ton of CD and DVD drives sitting right behind me, and how I amassed such a collection, and why I have like 300 of these things sitting behind me, and how they come into play when it comes to data recovery. One of these days, we'll talk about that.
Stay tuned for that in the future episode. But yeah, this demo disc with more than what you are presented with. I've found a bunch of these in the Saturn realm and in the Dreamcast realm, and if you're somebody who knows the PlayStation library well or the PS2 library well, let me know. Like, are there demo discs that you think might have more stuff on it? Because I'd love to look at them. And what makes a good candidate is, let's say a game lets you play one level, but then if the title screen times out and it shows you the attract mode for another level, well, that means that level is on there. The game engine has it, and we can probably play it. A good example of that is there's a weird game from the people who made Tomb Raider called Swagman, and there's a couple of demos like this on it. You play one level, but then there's auto demos of 4 or 5 other ones, and all of those you can jump into if you flip the right bit. I would have never played that game had I not been on this demo disc rabbit hole, but I wound up playing it a bunch to try to figure out how to stitch together these pieces, and I had kind of a fun time with it.
Swagman?
Swagman, yeah.
Has anybody here heard of Swagman? I have not. You said it's an Eidos game?
Yeah, Core Design, I think.
Core Design.
Yeah, published by Eidos, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense that it's Core Designs than Eidos.
Something interesting is that even if you have a demo disc that doesn't have data for like extra levels on it, sometimes it can have just little bits of code or like arrays, which they're easy to miss, but sometimes they can tell you really valuable things. Just as an example, in Spyro 3, there's this like really infamous island in the final homeworld, which is completely inaccessible. There's no way to get to it. And one of the developers, Craig Stitt, has spoken a number of times about how there used to be a whirlwind that would appear at the end of the game, and you could go up the whirlwind and it would take you all the way to this island in the distance. And the island would also have the portal to the final level on it. Whereas in the final release, that portal got moved to a more accessible point. So even though we have like the island there, we've never really known for sure like where the portal would be. But Spyro 3 has within its executable, in the data in the executable, there's actually an array of positions for where Spyro exits each of the portals in the game. So if you cross-reference that array against all of the different builds, you can see kind of how that portal moved for like most of development, or at least for most of development when that portal's around. It comes out to a completely different point, and you can see like where in the level that would be. And you can also see like when certain levels or certain portals are just not present at all because they're just not in the array.
Oh, that's cool too. And I guess you could also just mod the coordinates from the demo into the final game and see what they were playing with at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
I've got like a screenshot of where Spyro would come out, and it's just like it's in the middle of the sky.
Even if the full data is not there, even just getting like a little bit of a reference to something that was cut is still something pretty valuable. Like a good example would be the Sonic Adventure auto demo. Like that has the original version of Windy Valley before they, redid it. Kind of. It doesn't have everything, but it has the level geometry. It has the layout of the level. It doesn't have like all of the textures, but that's enough. That's enough to recreate it in the final version as like a mod. So just having the demo itself and just being able to look in a disassembler or a decompiler just to see if there's just little hints of evidence of something that may not have been in the demo completely, but also may not have been in the final at all.
I think one of the most widely documented of the demo disc that would fit the situation is Final Fantasy VIII. It had at least 3 different releases of this demo, and it's just so drastically different up to the FMVs rendered for it. It's a completely different looking game. It almost plays a little differently, but I think that is intact. Everything else is just completely different from what the characters would be and even who is shown in the demo.
I wonder if publishers come out with demos like that to, like, if they come out with the demo early enough in the development process, they will use that to kind of gather public feedback. If the demo, like, sometimes the demo is coming out way, like, far too late in the development process to like do anything about it. But I wonder if, like, how many times demos come out specifically to gauge interest in the development process, to see like what needs to change here before we actually go gold.
On the weird coordinates thing, there's a demo of Sonic Jam for the Saturn that normally you can just run around in the little 3D Sonic world for a minute before it kicks you out, but it's got the full do the little campaigns thing, like collect 50 rings and hang out with Tails and that whole thing. And so if you flip a few bits, you can do that. And what's interesting to me as somebody who's deep into the Sonic nerddom is they put the little panel to do the missions in a different spot. It's like not where you first drop in, so you kind of have to go looking for it to even play the part of Sonic Jam that's new to Sonic Jam. And until we've found that on the demo disc, I don't think anybody knew that there was any other idea than you drop right onto that.
It's crazy hearing these stories because I was a demo disc skeptic for a while. Like I would like see people uploading demo discs to the Hidden Palace, and I would be like, "This is a demo disc. You got this from a magazine. It's like it's a public release. Like it doesn't belong on the Hidden Palace wiki." Boy, was I wrong. There's like the demo discs are prototypes in a way, especially if they have like content that you can't normally see on the demo disc and doesn't exist in the final version. That's worth preserving. Like, where else are you going to find that?
That's one of the reasons why I am, I guess, what you would call an inclusionist when it comes to the wiki. Like I am for adding anything that people find interesting and or notable about video game history. And so, we keep adding new sections to the site. And every time I get this like kind of pushback, like, who cares? It's demos, or like, who cares? It's just DLCs. Every time it kind of turns out like, wait, there's like interesting stuff in that.
One that really set a corner of the internet on fire that I didn't know exist was there's a Bomberman SS or Saturn Bomberman demo that unless you pay really close attention to it, you would miss it. But there's 2 different characters in it that didn't make the final game. It's Pretty Bomber is one of them, and for some reason they cut her out in the final. But when I posted the patch to enable the full thing, the #1 Bomberman fan on the internet figured it out before I did and sent up the alarm, sent up the bomber signal.
It's always funny how every game has its own super fan base.
I'll never get over it.
Sometimes I have to go looking for them. Like, Swagman team, get in touch. I got what you're looking for. There's a cool game, I think, for Dreamcast called Surf Rocket Racers in the US, and they stuck a demo of it on one of the Aerowings stunt flying games in Japan, and it is weird, this demo, because it has multiple revisions of what this game was going to be called on the same demo. So the original name was evidently Jet Race, and then they changed it to Surf Rockers, and then back to Surf Rocket Racers, and just this build has all of them in one place.
Surf Rocket Racer fans, we're calling you out. And Swagman fans, we're waiting for you.
HWD, do you have any other cool demo disc tales for us?
I guess the only, I don't know, I might be repeating myself if I just start saying, oh yeah, there was a time that I found like I was able to get into a sub-level that's not accessible normally in a demo. Actually, that was kind of how I got into, the thing that made me realize that there was more to demo discs, I guess. Like I was always aware that demo discs were like early builds, and I was interested in all of that. But I think I was watching some, I don't even remember what it was. It was some YouTube video, and I saw someone doing some sort of like memory corruption or something, and they just casually made it out of the area that they were supposed to be confined to in one of the Spyro 3 demos and just made it into like the main level, and then they cut the video off, and I was like, well, now I have to do that. I have to see what goes down if you do that. And Yeah, and I kind of I taught myself Cheat Engine, and that was the first time I I really tried looking for sort of unused content, I guess. And I made it into the main section of a level where in the demo you're usually only confined to one of the sub levels. And then I saw that someone else had also done the same thing like a couple of weeks earlier, but they did it better than me. And also in the process, they found some like unused animation where he like flies into the level. But yeah, there's always, I think, always more things to find.
So that was your first hit.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was at university. It was like 2015, and instead of studying for my exams, I was like, I'm going to play Spyro 3, and I'm going to figure out how to get into this main area.
It's interesting you bring up Corruptions as the way that was found. I found Corruptions pretty interesting just as a concept, because I mean, what you're doing in a Corruption is you're just flipping random bits with complete disregard to what they actually represent. And in many ways, like, that's not an invalid way to find unused parts of a game, especially when you don't have the game mapped out yourself. Just throw some garbage in the RAM and see what happens. Who knows? You might find something interesting.
Yeah, I did it for Sonic 1 once. I tried corrupting Sonic 1, and I think like some unused like horizontal spike bar thing from Marble Zone just appeared in the middle of Spring Yard. I was like, oh, I guess that's the thing.
Oh, that's a good find.
I think it was well known at that point, but it was just a nice surprise seeing it turn up.
Well, it's funny too. We independently rediscover the techniques people use for developing exploits for malware or fuzzing for software quality assurance.
Yeah, so if you're ever interested in researching a demo disk that you like yourself, try ROM Corruptor. See what happens. You might find something interesting.
So before we leave, one thing for fans of demo discs is by the time you hear this, I will have published on my Rings of Saturn blog a patch for a PlayStation demo disc. This is the PlayStation Pix pack-in demo disc that came with the American console. It's got an auto demo of Destruction Derby, that vehicular combat game from Reflections and Psygnosis. You normally can't play it, but I patched it so you can. And it is the earliest build that I think is available. It beats the previous one by about a week. And, it's not super different from the retail release in the part that you can play. But if you look closely, you can see some stuff. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, go check it out and tell me other ones that you think might be candidates for this sort of hack. I'm trying to be systematic of this. I've gone through every Saturn disc. I've gone through every Dreamcast disc. But there's a big PlayStation library. There's a big PlayStation 2 library that I haven't touched yet. So do my work for me and tell me what's interesting about it. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Palace. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation about video game preservation with experts and enthusiasts. Thanks, Saz. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, HWD. Thanks, DRX. We will be back at some point with another episode. And tell us what you liked and tell your friends. See you next time.